Hey everybody, Sarah here. Sorry it's been so long. I know this has been like 6, 8 months or something since I posted my last videos. You'll have to excuse me if you can't hear me very well. I've had a cold, and so I'm getting over it. I'm sucking on a cough drop right now, and then, hopefully I won't be coughing through this whole video. But this is a video that's going to be outlining in corn snake breeding how to calculate multiple genes when you are when you're breeding. When you're trying to figure out, you're putting pairs together, you're trying to figure out what genes are going to line up with what and what the odds are of you getting it, a certain gene. In my last few videos, I went over, in general, how Punnett squares work and how to read certain Punnett squares depending on how the gene acts, as far as it's is it recessive or dominant or whatever. I highly recommend you go back and look at those, watch those if you haven't already, because you may not understand a lot of what's going to be going on here if you didn't understand those. So please go back and check those out. They're in this playlist. If you are looking at the playlist, it's called Corn Snake Genetics, I think. So yeah, go look at those if you haven't already, because this may be more complicated if you don't understand them. So essentially what I've laid out here is two different potential pairs. This pair over here being amyl and anery snow, het caramel, so the C stands for caramel, with an ultramel, het for caramel and anery. So AA is amyl, two copies of amyl, one on each allele, and then once again 2 copies of anery and only 1 copy of caramel. It's being het caramel. The green slash is just kind of saying everything after this is a het. So then there's AU, copy of amyl, copy of ultra. Since they are allelic, they're going to fall in the same locus, and so they can both be, you can see the combination of one gene with them, as opposed to having to have 2 copies of the exact same. You can have these 2 different genes, and they work together when they're together. Okay, and then there's het caramel and anery. Over here, we have hypo, het diffuse, and a diffuse het hypo. So essentially, what I always recommend is sitting out, looking at what you have and writing out what possibilities there are. So if you look at group 1, or at, pair 1, group 1, you're going to get some normals at least. You're going to get some normals because on the left side, there's none of the same genes, none of them are allelic. So if you look at like this side where there's the 2 H's, and then this side where there's the 2 D's, obviously there's nothing that lines up. Over here there is. So over here, amyl and ultramel line up. So you're not going to get any normals in any of these groups. Back to over here, so you know that group 1 is going to be normal. You see that hypo does line up at some point, even though they don't line up on the left side. They're still, both parents do have hypo somewhere. So hypo is going to be 1 combination, and then same with diffuse. Diffuse is going to be a combination, and then the combination of the combinations, hypodiffuse. So you know that those are the 4 possibilities that you're going to get. And over here, well, we'll do this one later. I'm going to do this one first since it is easier. Normally would do this side first, but I'm going to do this side first since it is the more simple one. So basically, when you are trying to figure these out, what I recommend is doing Punnett squares. If you don't understand Punnett squares, go back to my previous videos and learn how to read Punnett squares, because that's going to be essential to understanding how to do all this. Okay, so I've done a couple Punnett squares for these over here. This one in particular, just to show that there's a chance of getting half hypos if you breed a hypo to a het hypo, and there's a chance of getting half diffuse if you're breeding diffuse to a het diffuse. Now this is all just statistics. Keep in mind, there's no, it's just like flipping a coin over and over and over again. You may or may not actually get half and half, but statistically speaking, that's probably what you're going to get. Or like I said, no guarantees, but that's the probability. So if we go back over here, sorry, like I said, I got a cough up in my mouth. I'm trying to talk. Okay, we know that group 1 is going to be normals. So I'm going to write down normals here. RMALS. Okay. Now, when you have something like this, where the heterozygous and the homozygous line up, like in the hypo, you can do diffuse first if you want. I just picked hypo first because I wrote it down first. But when you have something like this, a homo to a het, you know that half of them are going to be, half of them, or at least half, are going to be hypos. So what we're going to say right now, and this is step 1, S1, step 1, normals, and then S2, step 2, we're going to say, we're going to cut the amount of normals in half and make half of those hypos. So we're going to say 1/2 H, and then 1/2 X. X is normal. X is always normal for me. XX. Okay. So now, that being step 2, we have half of these are definitely going to be hypo, and half of them are definitely not going to be hypo. I say normal. We're just going to say not hypo. Okay. So now we have the diffuse. The diffuse does the same thing. So we're half of these halves are going to be diffused. So then what we do at step 3, is we cut each of these halves in half. So half of this half, which it would be a quarter of these normals, is going to be diffused. So we're going to split that in half into 1/4 diffused, and then 1/4 not diffused, and not hypo, by the way. And then we also cut the hypo in half and make half of those diffused. So then there's 1/4 left of the hypo, and leaving 1/4 hypo diffused. So there's your lineup for that. And that is actually statistically what you're going to get. This luckily only needed 3 steps. That one over there is obviously going to be harder. But here, the more simple one, shows you what you're going to get. All of the genes are accounted for. All of the genes in your list are accounted for. Those are statistically what you're going to get when breeding something like that together. This is the same for any simple recessive breeding. So if you're breeding an amel het anery to an anery het amel, that's going to be the same lineup. You're going to get 1/4 normals, 1/4 anery, 1/4 amel, 1/4 snow, the combination. So that is essentially the easiest way to figure that one out. Over here, I'm going to go over here to the more complicated one. Now, once again, I've gone through and calculated each of these genes on Punnett Square. So starting with amel and ultra, you get 1/2 of each. So one thing that I'm going to start out doing, step one, if I can write it, is 1/2 amel, AA, maybe, and 1/2 AU. Okay, so step 1 in this one was a little more complicated than step 1 in the other one because of the ultramel, and because it is you're not just dealing with normal and then a recessive gene. You're dealing with 2 recessive genes that are allelic to each other. And then if you go on to, let's say, anery, since that's the next easiest one, we already know that if you breed an anery to a het anery, half of them are going to be aneries and half of them are not. So step 2 is a little more complicated than the other step 2. We need to cut all of these in half. So 1/4 is going to be amel, like we had before. 1/4 is going to be snow. I'm just going to put snow, maybe. And then over here, 1/4 ultramel. And then 1/4, let's see, it'd be, I'm just going to say AUNN, ultramel annery. Okay, so that's what happens when, I mean, and if that caramel wasn't up there, we would be done. If that caramel wasn't up there, it would only take 2 steps to figure this out. But since we have both of the parents are het caramel, we have a little bit more work to do. Now this one's going to be a little bit more complicated, and I know that's exactly what you wanted, was for it to be more complicated. Go and write this down. Step 3. Okay, if you look over here at this Punnett square for this, maybe if it's ever going to come into focus, when you do this, you end up getting half that are het caramel, 1/4 that are actually caramels, and then 1/4 that's not het caramel at all. Now, if you're calculating the phenotypes, which is what I'm going to do, I'm not going to calculate the genotypes of all these, but if we're calculating the phenotypes, this essentially means that 1/3, 1/4 is going to be caramel, and the rest are going to be normal, and that's what we're going to write down. Now, I know it's difficult to come up with what 1/3 of 1/4 would be, but we're going to try. I believe that 1/3 of 1/4 is going to be, what is that, like a 12th or something? I think it is. I'm not really sure. So, hold on. I'm going to have to do some math before I move on here. 1/3 of 1/4. Yeah, okay, I was right. It was 1/12. I should have just gone with my gut. Okay, so 1/12. Sorry, I know I had to go over here and do some math. Okay, so basically 1/12 of these is gonna be caramel, and I figured that out because okay, so we already figured out 1/4 of each of these. So 1/3 of each, 1/3 of 1/4, you basically take 3 times 12 and put a 1 over it, which is 1/12, which is what I assumed anyway. So, okay, so what we need to do then, instead of cutting all these in half like we have been, we need to kind of cut them into thirds, which is what we're going to do. So 1/12 is going to be amel caramel, and then 1/12 is going, 1/12 is going to be caramel snow. I'm going to put CC snow, W. 1/12 is going to be caramel ultramel. 1/12 is going to be caramel ultramel annery. Sorry if you can't really read that very well. And so if you see here, we have 4/12, and then the rest of the 12ths are divided evenly from throughout the rest of what we have up here. So 12 minus 4 is 8, and so 1/8 then is going to go to the rest of what we've established. So then it's going to be 1/8 amel, 1/8 snow, 1/8 ultramel, can't even read that, ultramel, and 1/8 ultramel annery. Okay, so I hope that you understood that as well as I did, minus my screw up there with my math. So the bottom, step 3, I guess there were still really only 3 steps in this, but the more genes you have, the more steps there are, just FYI. Generally speaking, this was still, as much as you don't want to think this was simple, it really was. Excuse me, like I said, I have a cough. Okay, so at the very end, what we have is 1/12 butter. This one, I'm gonna use my pen. 1/12 butter, 1/12 xanthic, which is caramel snow, and there you have butters and xanthics up here. We have 1/12 caramel ultramel, which is gold dust, which is there. 1/12, can't even read that, caramel ultramarine, which is anery gold dust there. And then 1/8 of the rest, amel, and then we have snow, ultramels, and ultramelaneries. So if you see what we have down here, this, and this are all the genes that are listed up here. So this is why it's important for you to first kind of go through and list all of the possible phenotypes you can get. That way, at the very end, you can kind of check yourself to make sure, oh yeah, okay, I got all the genes that I'm supposed to, that this makes sense. Or, you know, you can say, oops, I didn't get any ultramarinaries. You know, why didn't I get any ultramarinaries? I should have. And then you can go back and adjust your calculations. This is the simplest way, even though it doesn't seem simple, it's still the simplest way that I could personally find to figure multiple gene statistics if you're doing recessive genes. And I picked one that had a hat to a hat just so you could see, you know, why they say, you know, 1/12 this, but 1/8 this. Like, why don't they, you know, why is it not just 1/4 or 1/16 or whatever? And of course, this is still, I'm not sure. I guess I kind of thought there'd be more than 3 steps, but on this other one. And I know that if you have even more genes, there's going to be more steps. But the only reason really that this had 3 steps and not more steps than 3 is because of the allelic relationship between amel and ultra, and that whole thing. If I had said, for example, ultramel and ultramel, there would probably be, well, no, there'd still be the same amount of steps. We just have twice, or like 1/3 more than what we have, or half more than what we have. For, I guess, okay, if I had done something like, say, over here, if I had done like anery hypodiffuse, which would ghost diffuse, and then diffuse to go, like, you know, diffused het ghost, that would probably have had an extra step, something like that. And I may do another video of these. I highly doubt that you want to see me write all this down on the other side of this board, or even start over. There's just lines on this side of the board. But that gives you a general idea. I hope that you at least learn something from it. If you want to check out everything else that I do, you want to go to facebook.com/SarahSnakeShop. Over here, fb.com/SarahS snake SNAKE, and then another period SHOP. I know it's hard to see, but that's where you're gonna find all of my stuff that's for sale, and any other videos or photos that I put. I do most of my business on Facebook. I don't do a whole lot on YouTube, obviously. But if you're looking to see what I have available or ask questions or anything like that, that's the best place to go. I also have an Instagram. It's just Sarah Snake Shop, all one word, with no apostrophes or anything like that. And I have a Twitter, but good luck getting me to post on that. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope that this helped you out. If you have any video requests, please let me know. And I look forward to making the next video for you guys. Thanks for watching.